Chosen ones, 7 signs your failure was a pre-programmed quantum upgrade. When you're chosen, life doesn't follow the ordinary script. Things don't always make sense. In fact, sometimes it feels like everything is going wrong, like no matter how hard you try, something unseen keeps pulling the rug out from under you. You fail, you lose, you fall apart, and then you wonder, was it all meaningless? But what if I told you that your failure wasn't random? What if it was written into your timeline before you even arrived on this earth? What if the collapse you experienced was not the end, but the ignition? Because for the chosen ones, failure isn't failure. It's a pre-programmed quantum upgrade, an invisible, intelligent force that rewires your soul and shifts your reality at the deepest level. I know what it feels like to hit that wall. I've stood at the edge of everything I thought I was, only to watch it all disintegrate in front of me. The relationship I believed would last forever, gone. The career I poured years into, burned to ash. The identity I clung to, shattered. And in those moments when the silence was loud and the disappointment unbearable, I began to hear something else. Not with my ears, but with something older, something internal. It whispered, not you failed, but you're being recoded. That whisper became the seed of everything I understand now. That the fall is the first sign you're not broken, you're being rebuilt.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first sign that your failure is a quantum upgrade is that it came out of nowhere. It doesn't follow logic. Everything seemed fine one day, and then the floor vanished beneath you. You didn't see it coming. That's how you know it wasn't just a mistake, it was a realignment. The universe will often crash what you built on the wrong frequency, not to punish you, but to make space for what's actually meant for you. Your soul signed a contract before you were born, and that contract includes moments where the ego has to be stripped away violently, if necessary, so the deeper self can emerge. Have you noticed? The most intense breakdowns often come right before the most powerful breakthroughs. The chaos is not the end, it's the portal. The second sign is isolation, the kind that feels like no one gets you anymore. You try to explain what you're going through, and the people around you just don't understand. They either minimize it or avoid it. You feel like a ghost in your own life. But this is not abandonment, it's initiation. When you're being upgraded, the system has to quiet the noise. The people who used to be part of your reality may no longer match your frequency, and so they fade. It hurts, but it's sacred, because in that silence you begin to hear your true voice again, the one that's been buried under expectations, obligations, and distractions. The universe clears the room so the real you can enter. The third sign is emotional collapse. You feel everything: rage, grief, emptiness, nostalgia, fear. And what's strange is that these emotions don't always have a clear source. You cry, and you don't even know why. You feel grief for a version of yourself you've never even met. This is quantum purging. You are not just mourning what you lost in this life, you are releasing old codes, karmic loops, ancestral residue. Your failure triggered a spiritual detox. And just like a physical detox, it gets messy before it gets clean. But if you sit with it, if you breathe through it, you'll notice something astonishing. The emotions don't destroy you. They reveal you. They strip away the artificial layers and expose the raw essence of who you really are. And here's the fourth sign. Time begins to distort. Days blend. Hours stretch or vanish. Sometimes you feel like you're floating outside your body. Other times you're hyper-aware of every second. This is not a glitch. It's a recalibration. Your nervous system is syncing with a higher bandwidth. Your failure was the crash that rebooted your inner software. And now, your perception of time is adjusting to match a new rhythm, one that doesn't flow from the calendar, but from your soul's alignment with divine timing. You're no longer operating on the world's clock. You're syncing with the universal field, and that field moves by vibration, not schedule. But here's where it gets even more mysterious. The fifth sign is that strange synchronicities begin to show up, numbers repeating, dreams that feel more real than waking life, random encounters that seem too perfect to be coincidence. These are not accidents, they are breadcrumbs. The quantum field is showing you that the upgrade is taking hold. The system is beginning to respond to your new code, but it can't give you the full picture yet. Why? Because if it did, your mind would try to control it. And the upgrade doesn't come through control. It comes through surrender, through trust, through listening deeper than you ever have before. This is the hidden paradox. The more you surrender to your failure, the more power it gives you. The more you embrace the collapse, the more it elevates you. Because what's actually collapsing is not your life. It's the illusion of who you thought you were. And what's rising is the real you. The one who remembers why you came here. The one who doesn't measure success by money, fame, or validation, but by alignment, authenticity, and impact. So I ask you now with complete seriousness, what if your worst moment was your soul's most brilliant move? What if the version of you that you mourn is not the real loss but the illusion? And what if the pain you're feeling is not the signal you failed, but the proof you're finally waking up? You didn't fail. You were recalibrated. You were interrupted. You were intercepted by your own soul before you wandered too far from your true path. This is the deeper truth we were never taught, that failure is not the opposite of success, it's the beginning of real power. It's the DNA of transformation. It's the sacred trigger that starts the upgrade. And now, everything that broke you is quietly preparing to build you. Not back the way you were, but into something unimaginable. Behind every breakdown, the three hidden dimensions of your quantum soul contract. When everything collapses, the first instinct most of us have is to blame something: ourselves, others, the world, even fate. We want a reason for the pain. But the chosen ones, the ones who have been marked by a deeper mission, are eventually led to a far more profound truth. The reason isn't punishment. The reason is purpose. The failure you experienced wasn't just a random misfortune, it was encoded in your soul contract. Yes, a pre-agreement written before you were even born. And that contract contains layers, dimensions that most people never realize exist. But once you do, everything changes. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what am I being prepared for? The first hidden dimension of your soul contract is remembrance through disruption. We are born into a world designed to make us forget who we are. From an early age, we're conditioned to seek approval, to fit in, to obey systems that have nothing to do with our higher calling. And so, the soul, in its infinite wisdom, programs moments of disruption, failures, losses, betrayals, breakdowns not to break us, but to snap us out of the trance. Your failure was not the end of the dream. It was the end of the illusion. It was the alarm clock encoded into your timeline to wake you from a false identity. Have you ever noticed that after a major failure, you begin to question everything? That's not weakness. That's the return of curiosity, the reactivation of soul memory. You're remembering something deeper than you've ever known, something ancient, something sacred. The second hidden dimension is what I call soul friction for frequency alignment. This is deep. The soul operates on vibration, and everything you experience leaves a frequency imprint on your field. But if your life is out of alignment, if you're in the wrong job, the wrong relationship, the wrong environment, your vibration starts to dim. You feel it as anxiety, depression, numbness, disconnection. The soul cannot thrive in a lie. So it creates friction, and that friction builds until something breaks. That break is what we call failure. But in truth, it's a vibrational purge. Your soul was trying to shake you free from the artificial frequency you were trapped in. And the only way to do that was to let the old structure collapse. That's the upgrade. It's not about fixing what broke. It's about replacing the entire operating system with one that matches who you really are. But there's a third dimension, and this one is the most mysterious and the most powerful. I call it preloaded timelines of mastery. You see, the universe is fractal. That means there are infinite versions of you already existing across multiple dimensions. Some of those versions are stuck. Some are thriving. Some are masters. And your soul, in its divine genius, sets up failure not as an end, but as a portal and interdimensional jump point. When you hit that low point, when everything in the physical world seems to evaporate, your soul has a window to shift you onto a more accelerated path. But here's the catch. The shift can only be activated through surrender. You must let go of who you thought you were long enough for the higher version of you to merge. That's why failure hurts so bad. It's burning off the layers that keep you rooted in the limited self, so the quantum self can emerge. Let me ask you something you may have never considered before. What if your rock bottom was not the lowest point, but the launch pad? What if the day you thought your life was over was actually the day your higher timeline began to download into your body? Can you feel how that flips the entire narrative? This is not spiritual fluff. This is soul mechanics. You are not just living a life. You are navigating a map of consciousness, and failure is one of the most sacred coordinates on that map. So how do we work with this? How do we consciously engage with the upgrade once we recognize it? The answer is not self-pity. The answer is presence. You must become radically present with the rubble. Not to fix it, but to listen. There are instructions hidden inside your pain. There are coordinates in the confusion. Ask your soul, not your mind, what is this collapse asking me to remember? Sit in silence until the answer begins to surface not as words, but as a knowing. An inner sense that something new is forming, even if you can't see it yet. Here's the truth. If you've been through a failure so deep it shook the foundation of your life, and yet something inside you still knows you were meant for more, that feeling is not delusion. It's destiny. It's the echo of your higher self calling you forward. And that echo gets loudest when the old world disappears. Because that's when you're finally empty enough to receive the download. Your breakdown was sacred. Your failure was quantum. And your soul contract has always known what it was doing. When everything falls apart, this is what's actually being activated in you. There is a moment, often silent and unseen by the world, where something ancient begins to stir inside you, not when you're at your strongest, but when you are at your weakest. When everything you depended on begins to fall apart, when the structures you built your identity upon collapse like sandcastles under waves, when you're overwhelmed with the question, who am I without all of this? That is the exact moment something sacred begins to awaken. It doesn't shout. It doesn't force. It waits. It watches. And the moment you're empty enough, quiet enough, still enough, it starts to rise. That something is your original coding, the blueprint of your essence, the part of you that was never touched by failure, trauma, or fear, the real you. Most people never reach this point because they run at the first sign of collapse. They look for distractions, quick fixes, or someone to blame. But the chosen ones, the ones marked for deeper transformation, are not allowed that luxury. When we fall hard, because our soul isn't interested in surface-level lessons. It wants to activate the deeper archetypes. And that activation can only happen through the fire, through the stripping away of everything false, through the sacred unraveling. So what, exactly, is being activated when your world falls apart? The first thing is truth recognition. Not the truth of the world, but the truth of you. When everything external is gone, titles, roles, relationships, achievements, what remains is something timeless. It's the awareness that you are not the story you've been living. You are the one watching the story. You are the consciousness behind the name, behind the pain, behind the performance. And for the first time, you begin to feel the gap between who you thought you were and who you truly are. That gap is uncomfortable, but it is also holy, because it gives you a choice. You can either return to the old identity, or you can begin the journey into authenticity. The second activation is energetic reconfiguration. This is not metaphorical, it's literal. When you go through a spiritual collapse, your energy body, your field starts to reorganize. Old frequencies dissolve. Patterns that were inherited or imposed begin to break down. You may feel tired, disoriented, even physically ill. This is not a failure of your system. It's a reset of your system. Your body is recalibrating to hold a higher frequency, and that requires releasing the weight of old narratives. You're not just changing your mindset, you're changing your vibration. And as your vibration shifts, your reality must follow. Third, and perhaps most powerfully, is the activation of divine memory. You begin to remember not facts, but frequencies. You remember what it feels like to trust life, to create from intuition, to move without fear. These memories don't come as thoughts, they come as instincts. Suddenly, you just know something. You feel drawn to a new calling. You realize you're no longer interested in the things that once defined you. That's not confusion. That's clarity. You're remembering your soul's original mission buried beneath years of programming. And the more you follow those subtle nudges, the more your path begins to reveal itself. But here's the hard part. All of this happens before your outer world reflects it. You'll still look around and see rubble. You'll still have bills to pay, people questioning you, moments of doubt. But inside, something irreversible has shifted. And that inner shift is the seed. If you protect it, nurture it, trust it, it will grow. It will attract new people, new paths, new timelines. But it starts in the dark. It starts in the void. It starts with a quiet yes to becoming someone you've never been before. Let me ask you something intimate. What if the version of you you've been trying to resurrect is the very thing your soul is trying to evolve beyond? What if the loss wasn't a punishment, but a promotion? You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. You are not lost. You are being led. And the reason it all had to fall apart is because you were never meant to live a life that was small, safe, or scripted. You were meant to live a life that is true. And truth cannot be built on illusions, no matter how comfortable they seem. So don't rush to fix everything. Don't try to glue the pieces back together. Let the old self die with dignity. Let the empty space breathe. Let the silence speak. Because within that silence, something miraculous is happening. Your soul is rewriting the code of your life. Not based on fear or expectation, but based on alignment. This is the part most people miss. They think the rebirth happens after the healing. But for the chosen ones, the rebirth begins during the chaos. It's not clean. It's not linear. It's not pretty. But it's real. And once it starts, there's no going back. You can't unknow what you've remembered. You can't unfeel what you've awakened. You can't unbecome who you were always meant to be. And that is the true gift of failure. Not that it ends something, but that it begins something so much greater. The upgrade is already here. How to stabilize in your new reality before it arrives. The greatest paradox of transformation is this: the upgrade always arrives before you can see it. Not with your eyes, not in your bank account, not in the people around you yet, but in your energy, in your perception, in the way your soul begins to respond to life. The shift happens in the invisible first, and that's where most people miss it. They wait for confirmation before they commit. But the chosen ones, we move in faith. We stabilize in the new timeline before it fully materializes. That's the way of quantum reality. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are willing to embody. You have to become the version of yourself who has already received the upgrade, even while standing in the ashes of what used to be. You have to speak like it, walk like it, choose like it. You have to say no to what no longer matches your new frequency, even if it's all you've ever known. You have to trust the silence, the pause, the gap, because that's where the new reality is being built. Not out there, but in here. Every thought, every breath, every decision is either anchoring the old self or activating the new one. So here's the practice. Stop looking for proof and start becoming it. Start showing up as the person who knows the failure was the bridge, not the wall. Start walking with the posture of someone who has nothing to prove because you've already remembered who you are. Start honoring your energy like sacred currency because it is. You're not waiting for the future. You're embodying it now. And yes, it will feel unfamiliar. That's how you know it's real. The ego clings to the known. The soul dances in the unknown. When you begin to live as your upgraded self before life catches up, you collapse time. You accelerate the manifestation. You tell the quantum field, I'm ready, and the field always responds. So I leave you with this. What if the only thing you've been waiting for has been waiting for you to step into it? You didn't fail. You didn't fall. You were never off track. You were being rewired, recoded, reinitiated into the version of you that can hold what's coming. And it's coming fast. Because the upgrade isn't in the distance anymore. It's already here. And now, so are you.